much for coming to this session. Our session today is going to give an update on some OSS things and some interaction with the local government. So I'm going to let the speakers introduce themselves, and they both have a little something to share, and then we're going to do Q&A. So as soon as they're done giving their updates, anybody who has questions can come line up at the mic just like we did for the last session.
Hi, everybody. I am Marnie Benson, Associate Director of Government Affairs for Burning Man. My realm is government agencies, permitting, and a little bit more, and I'm going to do a deeper dive into that after Playground introduces herself.
I am Erin McCool. I go by Playground, and I've been at Burning Man working for 18 years and attending since '95. And I oversee several departments. I had to make a list because they're all very disparate and all over the place. Cafe, Arctica, Airport, Burner Express Bus, Burner Express Air, Leave No Trace Compliance, Vending Compliance, also known as OSS.
Yeah, just a couple minor details. We are going to give you an overview of the entities and agencies and operations, and also talk a little bit about the EIS, which Charlie and I talked about this morning, because we think that there is a really high interest in that, and there should be, because it's really the most important thing that we're working on right now. So I want to spend a few minutes just kind of talking about my world and what I think would be of interest to you all, and then Playground will do the same thing. And what we envision is a very interactive Q&A session, because I think all of your questions will spark really good conversation. So the agencies that I work with and that our team, including Playground and Charlie, work with include the Bureau of Land Management, who you know is our permitting agency. They also have people on site overseeing our environmental compliance, vending compliance, media compliance. They have law enforcement officers on site. They are the ones responsible for the very aggressive, visible police presence on Gate Road when the event opens. We work with them year-round. There's a team of us, and we also work with them on emergency response. We also work with... That's an interesting echo. We also work with FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. We work with the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, the Nevada Department of Transportation, the Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health, which is of interest to you all if you serve food or beverages. You have probably gotten permits and inspections, and we're here to answer questions about that. We work with the Pershing County Commission, the Pershing County Sheriff's Office, Washoe County Sheriff's Office, Washoe County Roads Department. Have I lost anybody yet? It's a long list. Nevada Highway Patrol. Last year, we started having to get a permit from the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. This is the work that we have to do all year round to get the Burning Man event permitted. And
there are new agencies that pop up every year who want to play with us.
Yes. So last year, the BLM officer in charge of our permit told us that we will need to work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to get a permit because our event takes place in a interstate navigable water.
Well, you need that water to plant the trees.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to need that water to plant the trees on our perimeter. So that's a light overview to get your creative juices flowing. But Playground, can you tell us about OSS and others?
Outside services. Who here does not know what outside services is? Who here uses outside services for their camp? Oh, nice. I'd say about half and half. So outside services has just over 50 vendors that come in and bring housing units, potable water, generators, power supplies, showers, porta potties, food, kitchens. And so they are the ones that come in and help support the camps do what they need to do. And it started in 2012, and it was to help camps build their infrastructure so they could have more interactivity on Playa and focus on the participants and not the building of the camp. And then that's been a little bit of, can we make the screen go off because it has like a weird echo and it's super distracting? Thanks. Kept thinking someone was throwing something at me. And so the number of providers has ebbed and flowed over the past couple years. I believe we had at 60 at one point, and then some people just sort of fell off with not wanting to come out, be providers anymore. So we've held it at about 50. 2 years ago, we capped the housing. Sorry, last year we capped the number of housing providers that were on Playa. This year we are capping the housing providers again, but we are not capping anything else this year. So transportation can grow, potable water can grow. We are seriously looking for a fuel vendor if they want to come out and do fuel for participants on Playa. So, you know, just putting that out there.
And I want to talk a little bit more about the environmental impact statement. This is the most important thing that we're working on right now, and it's the most important thing for you all to be thinking about. The document that dropped last Friday, weighing in at 1,042 pages, poses a serious threat to our future, to our permit, to our ability to produce the event. BLM has proposed overseeing or replacing or managing many of our operations. It would affect volunteerism. It would impact the way that you experience Black Rock City. You can imagine a 10-mile-long concrete barrier just on the other side of the fence. You can imagine getting screened on your way in by uniformed officers, taking apart your carefully packed car to look for weapons and drugs. You can imagine many of the mitigations that we talked about earlier impacting the environment. So the delays that would be caused by a private security company inspecting you and your possessions every time you come through the gate. If you're staff, that happens multiple times a day sometimes. The traffic backups on Gate Road and on the highways would be significant. The emissions from vehicles would be significant. Our very early estimate of the costs is $10 million just for the proposed mitigations. That doesn't even include the 3.5 pages of monitoring that BLM wants to require. So our teams are assessing this environmental analysis right now. It's big. There's a very technical air quality study. There's wilderness, wildlife, biological resources, cultural resources, traffic, night skies, noise. These are all different areas of expertise and science that are included in this document. And if you were in the room earlier this morning when Charlie and I were talking, there are other concerns, even beyond the fact that some of the things that are considered in there are impossible or nearly impossible. There are some conclusions that the BLM has drawn that seem way out of pace with what the problem they perceive is. Just to get your minds thinking about some of these things, we have one of our 10 principles is leaving no trace. We're the largest leave no trace event in the country, largely because of you and the way that you embrace this principle and the way you embody what it is to be a Burning Man and the way that you consider and plan your camps and the way you're going to take out your debris. We have a restoration team that is out there for over 2 weeks after everybody leaves, standing shoulder to shoulder, going through every inch of the playa, picking up things as small as glitter. We have a highway cleanup crew that goes around all of the roads from the playa all the way out to Wadsworth, from Nixon out, spends a little over 2 weeks, again, going over every square inch. And not only do they clean up trash that's accidentally blown off vehicles or trash that has come off of cars that have broken down, they pick up trash from year-round users, from people recreating, tourists, locals, hunters that leave trash on the side of the road. So these things aren't in that report, and this is where your voice is so needed, is to stand up for what you know to be true and what you see that is missing from the report. Do you want to add?
I was just going to add on to that. The highways that we clean up are not just from Wadsworth into Black Rock City. It's 447 all the way up to the California border to Wadsworth. It's Highway 34 that goes up to the California border in the other direction. It's parts of Jungo Road. So it's a vast area that we're picking up. And we're very good at it.
Yeah, and we work year-round with the tribe to make sure that we're addressing any concerns that they have and that their lake maintenance crews are synced up with our highway cleanup crews. So to have some of these statements in our EIS needs your voice to stick up for what we do as a community and a culture and our operations. We are happy to continue on, or we can break and take some questions. We know that some of the things that impact you all are the Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health and the permits that you get and the inspections that you get. We know that you interface with BLM's environmental compliance. We know that fuel storage impacts you, and you may have questions about why these things exist and how they impact our ability to have Burning Man. And of course, you probably have questions or comments about OSS. So we could break there.
Yeah, if you want to line up and queue up in front of the microphone, and make sure that you get, almost like you're going to take a drink from the microphone when you talk so that they can record you online, because when you're far enough away, then they can't hear you.
Hi, my name's Nick Groves. I've been burning for, I guess this will be my 5th year. I'm also a structural engineer in my day job, so I deal with authorities having jurisdiction all the time. And one of the things that struck me when I was reading some of the mitigation measures and the associated things that they were meant to solve was that it seems like there's kind of a fundamental disconnect on the understanding that people have of the event. Like the Jersey barriers that you're talking about are meant to prevent unauthorized entry by vehicles from the playa. Like, that's not a thing that ever happens. So I was wondering if you could speak to one of the things that I've found is that these things are often solved with the personal relationship that you have with the people that you're interfacing with on the government side. And so I was wondering if you could speak to the efforts that you've made and the kind of how you're going about dealing with the obvious misunderstanding of the people who are actually reviewing it. Because there's only so much that we can say. Fundamentally, the relationship that you have with the people who are making the decision is going to be probably the most important thing.
Those were a lot of great comments and questions. You really hit the nail on it, and especially when you went like this, that really captures kind of what we've been going through for the past week. To your first point about some of the things that you read seem out of scope with the problem that's perceived. That's putting it mildly, and I'm looking at Charlie because you're so spot on, and it's so frustrating to us to have that be so clear to people in our community who work, volunteer, or even just ride their bike out to the trash fence. I've been going to Burning Man for 18 years. Charlie has been event operations director for 7. I've been in my role for 6. We know of one car that got through the trash fence and caused almost no problem in that time. And so to your point about what's the problem and what's the scale of the solution, including the idea that trucking in all of those concrete barriers would be a traffic nightmare, a logistical problem, financially difficult, and an environmental mess, including the dunes that they would create and the carbon emissions from all the traffic, right? You start to think through these things, and so you're really on the right track. And I think one of the things that's important to remember about an EIS is that it's incumbent upon BLM to hear people's concerns, identify concerns, and find ways to address them. And it's up to us to tell them why they're right or wrong. So your observation about our relationships with BLM, I'm going to get to in just a second, but it's not to minimize absolutely how important your voice, even in one comment, could be. So as an example, one person in Gerlach says that they are concerned about trash on the side of the road, and now we have dumpsters for 80,000 people, right? So your comment's really going to matter. But our relationships, I'm going to let Playground talk about this too, is Black Rock City is so complex and so diverse, and there are so many different operations, and everyone has different roles, whether you're attending the event for the first time, or you've been there for 5 years, or you've been working for 19, right? And so one of our challenges is that the person in charge of our permit changes every couple of years. And so we start this whole education process over again, and Playground can speak to that as well.
We had 1 year where we had a good guy, and then they transferred him out. So then we got who we have now. But he's been there a couple years, so it might be almost time for the next one.
And here comes that cell phone number idea again. And so we We have relationships with BLM officials at all levels. So the person in charge of our permit is the field office, overseen by the district office, overseen by the state office, overseen by Washington, D.C. We meet with all levels. Under this current administration, we've had 4 state directors in the last year.
Yeah, and what's interesting about what you said is we do have a relationship with them. And through the past couple years of working with the current authorized officer, we've had successful conversations where we will introduce an idea or they'll introduce an idea. We negotiate, we talk, we collaborate, and then we come out of it doing the right thing, whether we bend a little bit or they bend a little bit, but we've had success, and then we've had big, giant EISs.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Wesley. I'm one of the senior leads of Mud Skippers Urban Decay Cafe. We've been out there for about 20-ish years now in some various form or another, and this will be my second year being our senior lead, along with Boz in the back over there. We have a question about OSS. So Marion's email has sort of put a kibosh on any vendors talking to any of us, and it's getting a little long in the tooth in our planning cadence to start thinking about what we're doing for institutional water and power. Do we have an update on when we'll be allowed to talk to vendors again? Vendors will be allowed to talk to us, and when we can start doing that, since we also have to produce Burning Man.
Talk to vendors.
Vendors don't want to talk to us, so that's the...
So yesterday, an email was sent to the vendors from President, who runs the Outside Services Program, and she let them know what the new fee structure is, what is allowed, what is not allowed, who's coming out to play and whatnot. This went out yesterday. Feel free to call the vendors.
Phenomenal. Are you guys going to update the OSS list with the current list of approved vendors for this year?
It's already updated.
Phenomenal. Thanks, guys.
Hi, I'm Daryl from Anahasana Village. More OSS questions.
Yeah.
Can you allude a little more to the changes at Health Station and abilities to get fuel, propane delivered?
There should be no changes at Health Station. You should still be able to get fuel and propane there as you have in the past.
Okay, so I heard you also saying you're going to look for a fuel vendor.
So the reason I brought that up is Health Station has not reached maximum capacity, but it's getting close.
Yeah.
And also our infrastructural fuel is getting close. And so if there was a third way for people to get fuel on Playa, that would just help everybody.
We'd love that. A beer at Sierra Fuels doesn't want to come back?
They work with us already.
They do. Oh, right, they're serving you. they're swamped, right? And then another question is, have you ever had any other vendors besides United want to do gray water disposal?
If you have an idea, I'm willing to hear it.
Yeah, so thanks. Sounds like that's a no. Yeah. Okay, come on, get in line. Oh.
It's snapping.
Yes, no, we have not had anyone else come up, but if anyone that wants to come out and play, that if you are not housing, please approach. That being said, the SRP for new vendors for BLM is March 28th.
Okay.
So we got, 3 days
Okay, right.
of the deadline for new vendors?
So trucking is not capped anymore, right?
No, in fact, everything was capped last year, and then we lifted transportation and trucking last year because we realized theme camps change and evolve. So you might have had a certain facade on your camp that came in a shipping container, and then it now needs to come in 2 semi-trailers, but you haven't changed anything, so you shouldn't be penalized from going to 1 to 2. And art pieces change every year, so Flaming Lotus Girls might have been 1 piece last year, and then it was 3 pieces, and so
lots of good stuff coming
we
in.
realized that it was not the smart thing to do to cap it, and so we lifted it.
Cool, thanks.
Hi, I'm Walter from Disco Fuck Yourself, and I love that. And so before coming here today, I reached out to my camp about the EIS thing because I got the blog, and asked everyone to take some action. And I got a lot of questions. What action? Like what do I write? What email do I send? Whose phone number do I call? So one thing I like to do is different people can take actions on different levels, and I like to have different tiers of impact, right? So if you could give me examples of actions that would fall into the category of best, most impactful, good, or minimally viable but still impactful actions that we can bring back to our communities and to our camp members.
What a great question. Thank you.
I'll sit down for the answer.
Okay. Most impactful are the submission of public comments at the meetings in Reno and Lovelock and through the BLM e-planning website. The email I read off earlier, and I'll do again at the end of this session. The content of the comments is where we get to the real answer of your question. And we did mention earlier that it's not a vote. So you would avoid saying things like, I support Burning Man, or I oppose this mitigation. More effective, more impactful, and more substantive is to say something like, I see in the Night Skies report that you have emphasized one data point and that the mitigation resulting from that is out of line. We can see from the recommendation for dumpsters that BLM seems to have failed to consider the environmental implications, and you would go on to explain what that is, or the cultural implications, the financial implications, the operational implications. So those are substantive comments that make a difference. The number of those unique comments really matters. So we can't send, for example, a perfectly worded template to you and have those copied, but you'll see on the journal, the Burning Man Journal on the website coming up over the next couple of weeks, multiple posts talking about some of these issues in detail so that we'll do the work for you on some of these things that are of gravest concern to point you in the direction of which part of the EIS this is in, why it's a concern, and where our strongest arguments are. We'll also point you in the direction of some of the things that are fantastic, like our socioeconomic impact. So does anybody have a guess how much money Burning Man brings to Northern Nevada every year?
$1 billion.
Close to $1 billion. The side of it, though, $70 million. $10 million from the organization, $60 million from you guys. It's huge. We have support for the Burning Man event to the highest levels of government and even at high levels of BLM and the Department of the Interior, but they need to hear from us. And so that's where like the biggest impact is going to come, is from those well-researched, well-thought-out comments. And we're doing that work behind the scenes right now to get you that information in a really clear way. We've been kind of on our heels a bit for the past week because this analysis has been going on independently of our work, and we have not been included. And so Friday was the first time that we saw that document. Do you want to add something before I finish? Yeah.
I just want to say, everyone in this room, do something about this, please.
Yeah.
And then get 2 friends to do something about it, and then 2 more friends.
Well, I want to say one other thing, because your question is so good. A lot of these reports, there's 11 technical reports. And if you have subject matter experts, whether they're the former solicitor of the BLM or an air quality research scientist, those are the folks that could weigh in on this. If you've had experience with law enforcement out there that leads you to believe that there's enough and that we don't need more, that would probably be important to weigh in on. And we were just talking with DA, who's in charge of Resto, over lunch, and he pointed out comment early and comment often. And so you can submit multiple comments as you research something or find that something's important to you, submit a comment. And then you find something else, submit another comment. If you're more the type of person who wants to organize all your thoughts into one big letter, that's fine too. Just try to make sure and reference which parts of the EIS you're talking about. So those are some helpful hints to be heard. I hope that answers most of your question.
Yeah, can you, as a favor, just make sure that the journal has really clear, defined calls to actions for these kind of things, so that people.
I will make sure that the next posts are clearer, and stronger calls to action. I give you my word.
Thank you.
We will do that.
So about those subject matter experts, it sounds like you need a lot of them across a very great variety of different things. Do you have a comprehensive list of what you're looking for out there? There's a lot of us that are very, very well connected, or like myself, run large recruiting organizations that specifically can find these people. And I would love to bring all of those resources to bear to help you.
Fantastic. The first 5 pages of this 1,042-page report is the table of contents and lists the areas, the technical areas and scientific areas. I'm going to just riff on a bunch of them right now to start you going. So there's wilderness, wildlife, threatened and endangered species, cultural resources, paleontology, historic trails. There's air quality, traffic management. There's night skies, noise, recreation, public health and safety, including law enforcement. That's about half the list. And so we have engaged subject matter experts at the Desert Research Institute, for example, to help us with air quality. So we have done some of that work, but we're a small team, and we've got until April 29th. And so I would direct you to Google Burning Man EIS BLM, and their site will come up, and you can click open that table of contents to see what's there. And again, the journal this week, we will have more specific information. There are also some legal questions. One of our fabulous legal team is here, and I think she will confirm that there are some legal concerns with the document itself. And so I wasn't kidding about if you know any former BLM solicitors that have some spare time, that's another way to look at it for us. I think I can mention something that's been mentioned a lot today is a concern about search and seizure at the gate with no probable cause. And so if we want to go more into that, we've got Allie Draps here, but that's another area that wouldn't be so obvious just looking at that table of contents, right? You do some deeper reading. And I'll let you guys know one other thing, which is we submitted our proposal for a 10-year permit for Burning Man to be the same length of time that it is right now, which is 8 days, starting on Sunday, ending on Labor Day. We saw on Friday, on the first page of this report, that the BLM authorized officer had unilaterally decided that Burning Man is a 9.5-day event. So that may not seem like much, but I can tell you that the downstream effects from that are potentially, give me a word, catastrophic, right? So little things like that even, we're working behind the scenes to try to understand. Yeah, do you, okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Dwayne from Blackrock Center for Unlearning. I was going to ping pong us back to OSS just real quick. Fuel last year, barrel delivery. We got ours 5 days late. I know some camps got it, didn't get them at all, 7 days.
Fuel barrel?
Fuel barrel delivery.
Was that through the Hell Station? Or
yes.
Okay.
They deliver 55-gallon barrels of fuel to the camp that we then store in the camp and use throughout the week. Ours was 5 days late. Like I said, some were 7 days late. Obviously, you haven't heard that. So.
No, I had not heard that. I do know that there was a fuel problem on Playa last year, and that was because one of the pipelines in Texas shut down, so the amount of fuel coming into the state of Nevada overall was lessened because of that. And so us even getting fuel on Playa was harder, and that downstream affects the camps.
So just that earworm in there, you know, their barrels were late last year, but trying to go to Hell Station to get fuel because we didn't have a show up and get account there. We had barrel delivery. We had a hard time getting fuel from Hell Station. So our theme, so we didn't get fuel. We were supposed to get it Wednesday. We got it Monday morning. So we were down as a theme camp for 2 days. And now with the new rating system, maybe if they came Monday, so that's my concern is.
Okay, I will take that under advisement. If you can come talk to me after this so I can get your information, and then I will work with the fuel team to see how we can mitigate this in the future.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Leos, the Legend of the Hidden Playa. Last year I had a lot of complaints about the police officers illegally searching many campers and attendees' cars. One of our particular camps, the person just needed to make a phone call, pulled off to the side of the road, and an officer decided to do a full search with literal no cause because pulling to the side of the road is not cause. Is there anything that we can do as a community to fight back against our Fourth Amendment violations?
Did everybody hear that question? I can summarize, or you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. The question is about law enforcement search and seizure, and I wanted to ask, could you tell me where those were taking place? Was it in the closure order in Black Rock City or on the roads leading in?
It was post Gerlach. We still had cell service, so
it was on the pavement.
Yes.
Not on the dirt.
Yes.
Right. So the question about being pulled over, or in one case for one of your friends, they pulled over to make a cell phone call and the police came and searched their car. So, right. I mean, one thing you can do is submit that information through the EIS, but another is to let us know about it through what we have, a law enforcement feedback form that's online all the time and on Playa when you're there. And each and every one of those is read by Allie right there from our legal team, myself, and our law enforcement advisor, Roger Vind. This is an ongoing problem that our whole team fights every year and has varying degrees of success, but most of what you're seeing on the Playa harkens back to a law enforcement officer with BLM who no longer is there, but started this very high-profile law enforcement operation, and his legacy is on the Playa. And I think now what you're probably seeing on County Road 34 is more of a Pershing County Sheriff operation. That's his jurisdiction, and he is a vocal detractor and opponent of Burning Man who has said to us that he would like it if Burning Man didn't even exist. And so I think that there are increased law enforcement operations for both BLM and Pershing County. Your question is, what can we do? So this is why Allie's here today. I'm giving her time to come up to the mic.
Yeah, so just when this happens, in the moment that it happens, it's happening. And unfortunately, your resources are limited. So where should I go? Oh, face the camera. Yeah, face the camera. Hi. Yeah. So your options are limited when it's happening, but to try and make it go as smoothly as possible for yourself, and then to, essentially attempt to fight it afterwards is the best route. And the problem with that is that, especially if you end up not getting arrested and a ticket, you have to take the onus on yourself to make a complaint, to push something forward. So where it can have a real cumulative impact is, as Marnie said, to make comments of this nature in connection with the EIS in a public process like this that details the concerns about potential Fourth Amendment violations and civil rights violations can go a long way to showing that the law enforcement culture that surrounds the Burning Man event inside and outside of Black Rock City needs to be adjusted.
Also, I wanted to say that if you can have some forethought when you're going through Gerlach, try and stop in a parking lot that's full of people, because then it's not going to seem suspicious. I think sometimes they think when you're pulling off on the side of the road before you get into the event, what are you doing? What are you hiding? Why are you pulled over? And so if you can try and stop in more public areas, then I think there'll be less harassment of that kind.
Did you have something?
Along the highway there were times where people were being pulled over that had dash cams, and when these officers that were clearly searching people without probable cause, when they saw dash cams recording their activities, were then letting them go without doing anything. So I think...
So everyone should get a dash
cam?
So,
yeah, transparency, with everybody, including law enforcement, keeps everybody honest.
Yeah, I was just going to address that before we go to the next topic. Is last year the Bureau of Indian Affairs set up a operation in the town of Nixon, meant to pull people over on their way to Burning Man. It was pre-event. They were doing this. They were going to be doing this for an 8-day period. We didn't find out about it till it started happening, but for an 8-day period leading up till Sunday of the opening of the event. So that's over 30,000 vehicles coming through there, and they set up to pull people over. They pulled people over for going 1 mile an hour over the speed limit and 1 mile an hour under the speed limit. They pulled people over for touching the white line. They pulled people over for breathing, blinking. And so our team sprang into action and did the best that we could and got them to leave on Friday instead of Sunday. But they don't coordinate this stuff with us, and it's hard to have an impact. So Allie's advice is great to try to just minimize, to make your experience less worse when it's happening, and to let us know about it through the EIS process. I'm telling you that the EIS process is so important. It's an opportunity that we have. We're really under a DEFCON, like whatever the highest one is right now, 5, okay? But it's also an opportunity for those of you who feel like you have not been heard, maybe your thoughts on law enforcement or something else. This really is the moment. And all of your comments have to be addressed by BLM. It's a requirement through NEPA. So I hope together we can make a difference. If they get 5,000 comments about over-aggressive law enforcement or there being too much law enforcement, we might be able to scale back. You might not share that opinion, but it is certainly a majority opinion that there's plenty of police presence on Playa.
Hi, my name is Finn with Hookers and Makers, and I had a couple of questions regarding the EIS. Well, first of all, I was hoping you might be able to explain to me how, hiring a private security company to search for contraband has fuck all to do with environmental impact. And secondly, I'm curious whether or not you think that some of these more outrageous demands that the BLM has made in this are designed to be concessions in the negotiation process.
I love this question so much. Thank you. We are the first BLM permit, including mining, oil and gas, pipelines, all recreation events, to have public health and safety and law enforcement specifically in an EIS. BLM has taken some latitude with what environmental impact is, and they have, since 1970, when NEPA was enacted, taken liberty with that now meaning impacts to communities along 447, public health and safety, medical, things that at least our experts have told us don't belong in an EIS and are unprecedented. And so what does private security have to do with environmental impact? This gets back to a question that was asked earlier about the level of mitigation outstretching by a million what they see as a problem. So they have stated in this mitigation that this private security company is going to search every vehicle, every motorhome, every person, all your possessions for specifically weapons and drugs. So in my time in Black Rock City, I know of 2, I believe, guns that made it through. Very, very small number, maybe. And were accidental. And so the size of the problem is kind of small compared to hiring now a private security company. And so those are and the impact that it would have culturally, like on our volunteerism and our gate operations and our traffic management, would be, I think, far worse than the benefit that might be had of hiring a private security company. Do you want to add to that? Negotiation. Someone recently said, you negotiate in good faith, and this doesn't seem like it's in good faith. And so we work year-round with BLM negotiating different terms of our permits, including our stipulations, but we weren't involved in the designing of these mitigations, but we will have an opportunity to negotiate these mitigations. We hope that we're heard.
Do you feel like they're willing to give up on some of the more outrageous stuff, that they have other priorities that they would really like to see? And, that this is stuff that they could give up in service of really demanding what's really on their mind?
I think it's possible that some of the things that they have recommended will turn out to be just financially impossible or even operationally impossible. Even if we were willing to put dumpsters for 80,000 people, could we even get that many dumpsters? I think that there will be some serious limitations to what we can do. And so I think your point is excellent around, there's 7 pages of mitigations and monitoring, and some of those are going to be more important and more viable and more feasible. I think I want to take the opportunity, too, to say that there are things in the monitoring that are due to one incident. So there is a requirement now in there for Burning Man to post a bond in case an art project doesn't get off the playa or damages the playa surface.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is another reason why your voices are very important, because all of the outlandish things that are there, having you guys write emails about why it should not be there is going to help our fight.
Hello, I'm Joshua True with BlackRock Labs, and want to really acknowledge the DEF CON 5 threat and a lot of out-of-whack things. And what I really enjoyed how you spoke to the opportunity. And in BlackRock Labs, we're in an innovation platform of the sustainable measures that we can do from power to waste, across the whole spectrum with water. And to look at April 29th and the ability to have a general plan of sustainability of what's happening, not just from the org, but internally with art cars and theme camps and every level of the community. And I was shocked this morning. I thought I knew of every solar-powered camp, and just in the presentation, there were 300% solar-powered camps that I wasn't even aware of. And I was like, it's happening in so many different ways. So I work in the default world, if you will, in residential and commercial, and doing this, and everyone is under sustainable development goals with a lot of boxes that want to be checked. And from air quality to noise pollution, how we're doing things to come out. We have an internal discussion that we really feel that the whole playa can power primarily with solar and batteries with generators back up in some period of time. And that coming in with this next 10-year window of a general sustainability plan, not only with what Burning Man is doing, but internally, the BlackRock Labs and our team would love to help formulate the plan of what has happened, is in the track that we're on, to really check a lot of positive boxes inside of this and show that in the next 10 years we're moving into something like a moonshot, that we can really be an example for the rest of the world as an event, as Burning Man is, and just love to offer our support in that process and how we could really share in core detail in a concrete plan that checks a lot of boxes in many of these different areas in positive ways that are happening to kind of in a holistically way take some pressure off of some of the other things.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. I think a lot of what you're saying is is one of the positive opportunities that we have, and it kind of speaks to a bit of a missing component in the EIS, which is this showing off of all the incredible things that we're already doing, and it's called proponent committed mitigation measures. And so we are fighting to have that list included in the document, and that's kind of what I was hinting at earlier around you all who know the things that are happening on Playa, like the renewable energy and the resto and the highway cleanup and our perimeter security, like all these things. To be able to speak to that, one of the most powerful things you can say in your comment is the EIS fails to adequately consider this factor in their analysis of this thing, and so and the mitigation that comes from that. And so I think if you saw that one of the key things for Project Citizenship this year is environmental sustainability, we have a team, an internal team that we work with David Shearer, who's over there, to look at where we are currently and what we can do in the future as an organization and as a culture. So it's a hot topic, and I would like to showcase that more in the future. So I think we're aligned, and I'm glad you're learning about the solar projects on Playa.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole. I'm on the doc team and helping with the live stream, and we have a comment question here from Nathan Aaron Heller. He says, many view the permitting of housing delivery set up by outside vendors through OSS as both unnecessary and as the central support to plug-and-play, turnkey, and convenience camping, and would like to see it end, as then it would seem convenience, etc. camping would likely diminish as a result. Why continue permitting this service while there are other means, i.e., through the community theme camp networking of housing, of housing support for those that fly or bus into BRC so that traffic mitigation continues?
So it is something that we are addressing. It's not something that you can just do overnight. So last year, by capping it, allowed us to really start studying the data of what housing is, and also lets us look at who is using it. So we can look at the number of people that are flying in, we can look at the number of people that are using the convenience aspect of it. And this year we will be collecting more data so we can look at how we can start shrinking that sort of convenience aspect. It's never going to be anything that goes away entirely, because you have people who cannot drive something in, and we need to create the bridges and the relationships with the theme camps that want to offer transportation of RVs for other people. So it's something that we're working on. It just takes time.
We also, what we learned this year from looking at the OSS data was that there's about 300 camps that use it, and that 20 of those camps use 50% of the housing allocation, and 25% of all of the things that come in through the program. So that's like 7% of the program users using an average of nearly 20% of the total amount of equipment that comes in. So I personally wrote to each of those individual camps yesterday, and we've told them that use of the OSS program to support your interactivity, to help you bring in the guy who's coming in from Japan who's joining your camp, or because you don't have a reefer truck one's getting delivered. There are very many acceptable uses of vendor support to fill specific holes. But these camps that are now using the vendor service as a backbone to their camp have to scale that back this year. And so we put that out to them. I acknowledge there's a group of people who are now in a really difficult situation, and they have to have some hard conversations, and we will. We have volunteered to come and help with those folks, and we put some ideas in the email, the communication that went to them. But what we said is we don't want to make a policy. We want you to understand that this is about intention, and this is about how you engage your community, and to understand really from a cultural perspective why this doesn't feel good, right? Because it's a gray line. What point is too much? Well, it kind of depends how you're doing it, right? So to begin with, there's no, and we also tried to do some math, and it was really hard to try and do it in a way that was like equitable and kind of made sense when you teased it out. So for this year, it's a request to those guys, and we will be visiting all of them on Playa. I've asked all of them to write to us and let us know kind of how they plan to deal with the fact that they now don't, that we're asking them to reduce this dependence. So we'll be able to, we're engaging them in a conversation, we're supporting them through the conversation, and I think actually, hopefully we'll get some really valuable learning lessons from it that we can share with everybody on, you know, when shit gets really hard and you begin to slide down this path, how do you undo that? How do you engage your community more? So I hope this is going to be, I've already started getting emails from back from folks saying, we got it, cultural course correcting, we're on it, thank you. But undoubtedly there will be a couple of people that don't do so well, and then we'll have to have a different conversation.
Hi, I'm Peter, or Adorable. I'm from a new camp, Camp Happiness, and I didn't choose the name. Yeah. Yeah. I have 3 comments. One very short one to OSS. I totally support what was said about United. It is frustrating to work with them. There are delays. It's costly. They almost expect tips to come to you, and that's just not how it's supposed to go.
This is United Site Services for the gray water servicing? Okay.
Yeah. And then 2 EIS comments. The first one, I understand that we're focusing a lot on these outrageous things. I feel a bit as if we're kind of focusing on the dogs that bark the loudest and ignoring things that might end up on the side. Are there efforts or coordinated efforts to really see that everything is looked at by the community too, not just by the org? Or are there people that are interested in that? That's the one question. And the second one, I understand that we're focusing on the public comment right now, but it feels like we're treated a bit unfairly by some of the BLM employees. Usually, in such a case, I would go to the higher level there too and bring up complaints or anything too. Are there ways to do that? And should we as a community do that?
Yes, and yes. Thank you for asking, because I was considering your question more in depth, and there is a very specific process to achieve results and fair mitigations going through NEPA. But we're really in a position where I hope that by focusing on these very real mitigations that BLM has proposed that are outrageous, I think was the word you used, and they certainly are, that we really want to get your attention and make you understand that these things could be required forever on our permit, and we don't want them. But there are a couple good questions in there. Is there a coordinated effort to make sure that we're capturing everything and responding to everything? Absolutely there is. Internally, we're doing a lot of work to make sure that if it's something we need to take to the BLM directly, we're doing that. Or if there are smaller details that haven't hit the headlines yet, we're going to be including those in the journal. And we think by asking for you and your subject matter experts to take a look at the document, when you open it up, there'll be pieces that will resonate with you. But we'll do a better job of capturing the small things along with the outrageous things this coming week and two in the journal and the JRS. In terms of elevating your concerns, there is almost nothing more effective than calling or writing the two Nevada senators, and that's Senator Catherine Cortez Masto and Senator Jackie Rosen, who are both, they're the Nevada senators who support Burning Man and our economic impact and cultural impact in Nevada. And the congressional district is Representative Mark Amadei, and he has been very supportive of Burning Man, and he's been a representative for many, many years in Nevada and is very familiar with the event, and he cares, and the issues that are important to you are important to all three of these national representatives. If you wanted to elevate your concern within the BLM, you are invited to call the Nevada State Office in Reno, and you can request to either speak with or leave a message for the state director if your concerns are serious, which ours are. And so those are ways to be heard outside of the direct EIS process. And I hope that answers your question.
So I feel like a huge success story of the last handful of years has been the Burner Express bus in terms of reducing traffic, carbon emissions, trash and recycling, and much more. I may be biased, but I kind of see like regional shipping programs as the other side of that coin. I'm biased. I founded one 5 years ago. Tomorrow I'll be speaking on a panel about shipping programs. Removing the cap on OSS transport last year, awesome. Are there other things in the works in terms of transport? Are there other things that I can be doing that other people can be doing to help with that, or people that should be talked to, that sort of thing?
Thank you for doing the regional transport, by the way. It's an awesome program. I would encourage other regionals to either join that program or make their own programs in their own areas. And we are encouraging more transportation companies to come out and truck with us, because there's a handful of people that have been doing it, and of course their assets for trucking are limited. There's only so many semi-tractors and flatbeds that people own. So if you know of other companies that do transportation that want to get involved, they have 5 days to file an SRP with BLM to come out and play on the playa. For this year.
Mine was also about the Burner Express. So Jessica, Ideate. So we're really big into loving Mother Earth, and so that's why we do composting. Bring us your compost, and we strongly encourage everybody in our camp to use the burner bus because it really is a really sustainable way. The issue is though that I lose everyone by Monday. Like I have like no one left for strike if I encourage everyone to take the burner bus. So I'm in essence punishing people who double time. So I would love to be able to request some burner buses that go later, even potentially like Tuesday or Wednesday. And so what could we do to make that happen?
Talk to me after this, and I will put in a request to make that happen.
Okay.
What a great idea.
Hi,
It's Ken. Sorry about the bond. We'll talk after. See what I can do. I'm here to. Anyways. Yeah. What economic impact outside of Nevada occurs? Is there any data on that? And we had an enormous project in California, 30 to 40,000 man hours put in there. We had an enormous amount of time and energy and money that was spent, and that was in California. So Ted Lieu's my congressman. He's kind of a firebrand. He likes going after this administration. Is there data that's available for us to say, I'm going to call my congressman, because when there's money happening, they like to take impact on that. And is that something we should do? That's question number one. There's that. And then the second question is, I have this conversation with a lot of people a lot of times who run camps, and they say, I would love to be able to leave and go get something, but the line coming back in is so staggeringly huge, there's no way I'm going out. And we need to get X, Y, and Z. So we have a 35-foot gooseneck trailer, and if after a certain point, it's like we're not going back out. But if there was a way to be able to leave through point 1, through the OSS gate, that would alleviate for us a lot of logistical problems, and then we wouldn't have people stuck in line in the general gate line, waiting 12, 24, 36 hours, however long that crazy line can get. Is there any, I mean, I know this year, maybe this isn't the year to do it, but is there any flexibility or concept or thoughts around having theme camps have the ability to use the OSS gate under specific circumstances?
I have thoughts about how you can get your stuff in, reaching out to your community and have them bring it in for you.
We already do that. Okay. But there's sometimes when, when you're running a big project, it's like, oh God, we have to go get X, Y, and Z. And I've just had so many people talk about this theme camp run, people who run theme camps, I guess TCO, who say, we can't get out. And you can only throw so much stuff in the RV. And we need to go back out and bring it in. And that line is enormous. Is it just not logistically feasible, or? That's okay.
It's just not something that's on our radar right now, but.
I've had theme camps that are like, I will pay. I'll pay to get that wristband. To be an OSS
That's also
vendor.
not what we're about.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, they're like, God, if we could just somehow bypass that,
That might be part of the problem, Ken.
We get all of our stuff a week and a half. We're doing pretty good, but every once in a while we get a hit.
Yeah, we have talked about it, and you're right, this year is not the year to
right.
make that kind of change, because we have other fish that we're frying.
Yes.
Burning Man is not supposed to be about ease. Who thinks Burning Man's easy? So it is something that we look at. It is something that we talk about, and we can bring it up again for 2020. But I always encourage people to look to their community. I would like to go out and get things, and then I call people, when are you coming? Can you bring me this washer? Can you bring me this nut? Whatever.
Yeah.
So, they can't always bring all the things, but I get it.
To your first question, we don't have data on the downstream economic impact of Burning Man. We were internally hoping that we could undertake such a study during parallel to the CIS, but it proved to be a larger project than our small team could take on. I would love to have that data. It seems like that would be a fantastic sort of thesis project for someone to really get into evaluating the ripple effects, because now that we have 90 different events around the world and 30 years of community building, there's projects, we're working with mayors, there's Burners Without Borders. There's so many things going on. We didn't have the resources to be able to put our arms around that right now. Would love to have that data some point in the future. We think it's significant and would really be amazing.
So on the topic of data, for the EIS stuff, I'd love to have more specific action. So to your point, the comments need to be actionable, right? Is it possible to put together a data book of event operation statistics, such as, I know it exists, it's just hard to find in one place right now, the traffic on 447, total city population by day, all the various breakdowns that I know Charlie and the other ops teams used to do their calculations, because I'm just sitting here doing back of the math stuff, and I know my calculations are going to be round, and I like them to be precise. So like when I say it's going to take 5 miles of 14-foot skidders on Gate Road, side to side, to be able to make sure that number's precise versus like me just doing back of the math stuff, saying like I've got 80,000 people, 2 bags of trash that equals this square footage. So like, I mean, not square footage, volume. So more specific data books are going to empower people like myself and the other TCOs who are data nuts that like to do this stuff to give you actionable input. But unless we have access to the official numbers that you all are using for census guidelines and for the own event operation statistics, which are buried in either the annual reports or not surfaced well in the annual reports, we're not going to be able to give you the type of stuff you need. So the more granular data book that you can give us, the better types of comments you're going to be able to get. And the sooner you get that to us, the more time we have to be able to do the analysis. Like I'm on 4 text threads right now with people in San Francisco willing to whip up a whole mess of different studies. But unless we have official numbers to work off of, our data's bunk.
You're right. The data is so important. We would like to get you data that you need to do more specific calculations. After Charlie and I spoke this morning, I worked with our tech department and created an email address for you to contact us. It's eis@burningman.org. And so because we are still assessing and really responding to so many different pieces, if you were to send an email with that request, be as specific as you can, because we have so much data, and I'd love to be able to give you nuggets that would help you in your work. It's a brand new email address. It's the first time we've said that. So if you do it today, you'll be right on our radar.
Great.
And the second request I have actually is that there was a preliminary draft of the EIS that was circulated to us in September for an initial review, and we had a public comment period at that time. Charlie and I have reviewed the comments in this draft, and we see that some of the comments that were submitted were not included. And so we're going to ask the community to copy EIS@burningman.org when you send your comments in. So I'd just like to put that out there. And I'm a data geek too, so I would like to get you whatever we can. I have somebody who's working with me on just that. And so send an email in and we will get you what's available and what we can provide you, because we would love to have some of your calculations. Those are just the things we need to point out in the EIS that maybe weren't fully considered, or maybe there was an error in the analysis.
Great.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Spacious again. Can you comment anything more about the ticket tax that came up a couple years back? And I know you worked really hard to fight it and did a lot of stuff. Do you see that ever potentially going away, or any ways that we can like defund or have projects totally independently funded so that it's not us or it's not Burning Man that's getting taxed? It's like,
well, you're referring to the live entertainment tax that the state of Nevada passed 2 years ago. The legislature in Nevada only meets every 2 years, so they have 6 months to just sort of race through all of their proposals. And the live entertainment tax existed before 2 years ago, but it did not apply to Burning Man because it's a live entertainment tax, and we did not meet any of the definitions. And so they changed the definitions. And so they looped in nonprofit organizations throwing events in Nevada with greater than 10,000 people in the Black Rock Desert on Labor Day. I mean, basically that was, so that was just shy of what the language in the bill is. And, you know, much to my dismay in the halls of the legislature that year, they were nicknaming that amendment the Burning Man tax. And so to your question, yes, they absolutely targeted us, and in the meantime left out NASCAR, collegiate sports, professional baseball. So that's fun. And do we see it changing in the future? We have a legal challenge underway. Those things take some time. And again, we have Allie here who did the heavy lifting on that project and continues to fight for us. And so we're trying, and I actually love that you brought that up, because I know how much that impacts. Like every increase towards us ripples out and impacts every one of you. And we're here this weekend talking about a lot of things, including cultural direction setting. And for every incremental increase in the cost to come to Burning Man, it breaks my heart a little bit more. And so that tax, I see that on every ticket. I hear it talked about in the halls of the legislature. We're trying. We're really, really trying.
Cool. And then following up on the bus comment, it would also be great if there were a couple buses coming in early arrival. Right. And also, thank you so much for letting people come in without work access passes on Saturday with the buses. That's been great. Thank you. And then, I also wanted to put a plug in for making it a little bit easier for theme camps, particularly big villages, to have their own buses. We used to have one of those in DC, and some things happened. But if that could happen again, easier without, it'd be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
One quick follow-up, and I think something that a lot of us are probably thinking and don't want to say out loud is, have we thought about a different location?
Do you have a large piece of property we can move on to?
I'm not at liberty to disclose everything.
Yeah.
Talk to us after.
Well, Playground and I are both enthusiastic to respond to this question. I think you'll recall 2 years ago, there were people kayaking on the playa in June. So we were concerned, and that spring we led an internal effort to find an alternative location, and we put a lot of resources and a lot of time into that. And much like the conversations around plug and play and other conversations where it's like, we should just get another place, once you start really like picking it up and looking at it, you're like, well, what about, well, we have to think about that, and we have to think about that, and all these other things. And so Playground actually spent a big chunk of the spring flying over places, driving into places, four-wheel driving into places. We were meeting with agencies right and left, and
it was a lot of fun to try and find another place to do this. And you know, I looked at a lot of different places. I even went and photoshopped Black Rock City in different shapes and sizes into these different places to try and make it fit. And there's just not a whole lot around where we are. And we kind of need to stay where we are because our infrastructure is on a ranch not too far away, that we don't want to then truck it to the other side of the country, because I guarantee you most of it would not make it there. It's that janky. And so it needs to stay where we are-ish. So if someone has land, we're willing to talk to you.
Yeah.
Come talk to us after.
Come talk to us after. Yeah.
Yeah, if it could be like the playa, then all the better.
Yeah. What not to do regarding the EIS. When you are calling a congressional office or submitting a comment or calling the BLM, it is fine to have the strength of your conviction and to be informed and to be passionate, but leave the emotional outrage at the door, or put it down for a second, then make the call and then pick it back up. So really what is going to get us far is an analysis, speaking from your own personal experience. If you're a volunteer on a team and you can speak to highway cleanup or gate security or perimeter security or any of these things, include that in your comment. What else not to do in the EIS? Don't miss the deadline. Don't type in the email address wrong.
And remember, it's not voting.
It's not voting. I would like to, if you would like me to read that email address once again, I will. And we are going to continue publishing updates on our website very often, starting this week. I'm going to read this email address one more time. It is BLM_NV, like Nevada, _ Man EIS at blm.gov. And remember, you're going to copy EIS at burningman.org so I can see your awesome comment and make sure that gets addressed. Yes, I'm going to read it one more time. Please stand by. Okay, one more time. That's BLM_, NV_Burning Man EIS at BLM.gov.
So a lot of us have projects out at the ranch, not the Burning Man Ranch, but ranches out in Gerlach, Lovelock, the surrounding areas, as well as storage out there, storage in Reno. How valuable is it for us to organize our work weekends or work trips alongside the Lovelock and Reno dates to make sure that we have presence for these meetings? Is that an important thing, not an important thing?
That would be amazing. And I want to say a couple things. One is that the previous round of meetings that we did, there were not very many people at the Reno meeting. Reno really loves and supports Burning Man and benefits quite a bit, but we are rallying the troops. In Lovelock, we were outnumbered a little bit by folks who have strong thoughts and opinions about Burning Man, most of whom haven't gone, but are in the community whose county we're in. And so given what we've seen in this document, we need support out there. And what we need are comments in front of the room, either supporting our operations or speaking to specific parts of the EIS. So, I mean, I would just be so grateful if you did that.
And it's Monday, April 8th in Reno, and Tuesday, April 9th in Lovelock.
Is it more valuable to have 5 people giving substantive commentary or 5 buses full of people cheering?
Yes.
All of the above? Okay. Great.
David, did you have something to add to that? Comments in person during those meetings will steer the course of those conversations and allow, so for example, if there's a question or comment from the audience about our operations, it gives us a chance to talk about our highway cleanup efforts or our perimeter security, then those of us up in the front of the room can also build on that comment. And I think that that is a really strong, positive way to get messaging out there that maybe is lacking in the document or in the minds of community members who feel impacted by the event.
And we are getting the signal to wrap it up, so if we could have our last question.
It's not a question, just a very short comment. Actually, there is a question. Would it be possible to have a post up relatively quickly that explains the technicalities of sending in the public comments? As far as I know from the notice of intent, you need to add your name and address. If you don't want to have that, you have to specifically mention that you don't want to be published afterward.
It's our top priority. In fact, if you look at the comments in the original post, it might be there now. Thank you. There's one more question, and then we're going. Yes.
Addressing the EIS. Oh, sorry. I'm kind of shy about asking a question, but there's a community that you said benefited a lot from the money spent. Yes. Has anyone contacted the community via papers or any other publicity to get their support, or maybe you don't want to because maybe you feel like they wouldn't give you their support, but you said there's a lot of money.
That's a great question. And the Northern Nevada community that receives the $70 million impact each year mostly is Washoe County, and many of those folks were interviewed for the environmental impact statement. And there's a nice, thick, well-done socioeconomic study. It's not comprehensive, so the more comments that we have about those impacts, the better. But we do work really closely with Washoe County, and we opened an office in Reno, and so we have a very active community gaining support for submitting those kinds of comments and coming to the meeting. So that's a really good point.